Alright guys, anyone who knows me knows that my main sport is NASCAR. I pretty much did this YouTube idea thinking NASCAR, but I made it kind of in the off season, so I didn't have a lot to do. But we're finally getting close. We're within 4 weeks of the Daytona 500. I can't wait. If you follow me on Twitter or friends with me on Facebook or anything, I've been doing a countdown toward it, posting pictures every day with not drivers with the car number that matches the amount of days till the race. I'm freaking pumped. I'm excited, and I want to do something NASCAR related. So it's a little early to predict everything, so instead of that, I'm going to start by recapping the years for each race team, kind of giving you an idea of how they ended last year before we get into how they're going to do this year. And for my first video, I wanted to do the one who's kind of made the most buzz in the off-season, so I'm going to start by talking about Stewart-Haas Racing. These guys came into 2013 with a hot rookie. Y'all might have known her name was Danica Patrick. A lot of people were mad, thought she'd moved up too quick. She kind of struggled in her year in JR Motorsports and went directly up. Not gonna lie, it was for money, GoDaddy, and everybody wanted her in Cup. And people went nuts about it. I know guys, or at least met guys at the Brickyard this year that had Danica Patrick tattoos and everything else. It's like an 80-year-old dude rocking the GoDaddy hat. It's fine. I don't care. It was interesting. Anyways, Stewart-Haas Racing, though, came into the year hot. Danica was on the pole, and all three Stewart-Haas drivers qualified well. But they had to race in the Gatorade duels. Danica struggled in the duels, but she was still starting first. She qualified first, so it worked out for her. Tony Stewart, he was, I don't know, he was, you know how Tony is when it comes down to the race for the 500. He didn't qualify himself into the top front row, but he still ran decent in the duels, finishing 6th, so he started 13th. Danica started on the pole. Newman actually had qualified in the second row, but he ended up having to start the Daytona 500 in 34th after placing 21st in the qualifier. But overall, as the race went on, Tony looked decent. Danica was surprisingly good. That car was amazing in that race, and she looked great all day long. And actually, when it all came down to it and it was all said and done, the Daytona 500 would be Danica's best finish of the year. Tony Stewart, he got wrecked, I believe, and he finished 41st. Rough day for him. Ryan Newman actually drove all the way up there at the end and finished 5th, and Danica Patrick finished 8th, getting a top 10 in her first ever start in NASCAR Sprint Cup action as a rookie. It was impressive, and it gave a lot of people hope that she would do great on the year, but after that, Danica kind of fell into the trap of just running bad, like everybody thought she would, honestly. After that, her next 5 finishes were 39th, 33rd, 28th, 26th, and a surprising 12th in the SDP Gas Booster 500. But the rest of the year, she would struggle. She usually finished in the 20s. So list off her next few finishes: 28th, 25th, 29th, 33rd, 28th, 29th, 24th, 29th. Quickens Load 400, Michigan, she got a 13th place finish, which was good, but then 29th, 23rd, she had a few good ones. Daytona is definitely Danica's track. You can see the IndyCar influence kind of on her in those. She finished 14th in the Coke Zero 400, which still feels weird to say. It'll always be the Pepsi 400 to me, but what are you going to do? She followed that up, though, struggling again. 37th, 30th, 35th, 20th, 23rd, 26th, 21st, 30th. You get the idea. Really only a few finishes inside the top 20 even. Danica struggled all year long. I mean, even the race at the Brickyard where everybody thought she might have a shot from IndyCar fame, they race so different, people don't realize that. She finished 30th in that and struggled. But Danica was kind of the sour point on it, but the other two drivers were looking pretty good. Newman, typical Newman, he was kind of borderline chase all year. He'd finish good in a few races, and then he'd struggle. Like he had a 32nd place finish in a wreck at Talladega, but he would usually finish in the top 15 finishes. After starting with a 40th and 38th, he had no luck at the start of the year. Wrecks after a top 5 in the Daytona 500, but finished 7th at Bristol, 6th at Charlotte in the 600, 5th at Pocono early on in the summer. And overall, he was keeping himself in contention for the chase. It looked like it was going to go good for him, but he just wasn't quite over the hump. Meanwhile, Tony Stewart at the time had kind of snuck his way into the chase for the most part. He'd had that rough Daytona 500 and a few other rough races, a 31st at Bristol, a 22nd in California. You could tell there were some growing pains with this team expanding. But Stewart was able to kind of steal a win from Juan Pablo Montoya at Dover, and that really had him looking like he had a shot to chase. There in that little four-race span, including that one, he finished seventh, first, fourth, and fifth, and it really had Stewart looking like a legitimate contender. And I don't know, he had these. He finished second in the July race at Daytona. It's really good. And he also finished in the top five of the Brickyard 400. He was even happier with the winner than he was with himself, really, because Ryan Newman actually pulled off a big win. I saw it. I go to the Brickyard every year. Newman was able to use some strategy to beat Jimmy Johnson in his own game, kind of, and he won the Brickyard 400. That put Newman pretty well in the chase. Also, he was on that little borderline cutoff. Same with Stewart. They were both fighting for it. Um, Also to note, Tony Stewart hosted a successful Mud Summer Classic. I went to that. Amazing, amazing race. I already have my tickets for next year pre-ordered and paid off. I'm pumped. I'm excited. I can't wait. It's probably the best race of the year for me. But after the Brickyard, they went to Pocono. Tony did good, finished ninth. Newman finished fourth. Both of them were fighting for chase contention. It was really solid. And then that's when the year fell off. Stewart had been in a bad wreck already. That week before, he'd been in a nasty wreck. People thought maybe all the races he runs was getting to him in his dirt track career. Well, after Pocono, it would come to a head. Stewart shattered his leg in a nasty, nasty crash racing sprint cars, and it ended Tony's season. He would end up dropping from, I think, was he 11th at the time, I believe? He'd drop out of the chase all the way out and finish the year 29th. Danica Patrick struggle all the way down the stretch, and she would finish 27th, losing Rookie of the Year to her boyfriend, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. And Ryan Newman actually snuck into the chase after everything. Stewart's misfortune was kind of Newman's gain. He finished fifth at Atlanta and third at Richmond and pushed himself into it after the whole arm scratching scenario with Boyer and Truex knocking Truex out, because Newman originally wouldn't have made it. So that got him in it. But then in the chase, some bad luck really kept him out of it. He finished 10th at Chicago, 16th at New Hampshire. He was kind of struggling a little bit, but he managed to bring him top 10 at 8th in Dover. But then 35th place finish at Kansas really kind of knocked him out of it. He finished 8th at Charlotte and 9th at Talladega the next 2 weeks, but at Martinsville in 38th would completely knock him out of it. And he finished the year with a 9th place finish at Texas, 10th at Phoenix, and a mediocre 17th at Homestead. So Newman had a very, I'm sad to say, Newman-like year. He did good, but never really did. I don't know. He had such high expectations a decade ago after that amazing first 2-3 years, and he's never really lived up to it since. He's kind of struggled with that, but it was still a pretty good year for Newman. Smoke Will Rise has been trending everywhere for NASCAR fans. I can't wait. Tony's going to be back soon. If you look at the rest of the year, Newman found out he wasn't going to be back at Stewart-Haas. He's actually signed with RCR to drive the 31 car, and Stewart-Haas is going to be bringing in Kevin Harvick and a surprising sign, thanks to Gene Haas, Kurt Busch. And we'll be talking about that more when I go to preview each team. Anyway, Stewart-Haas kind of had a downward year last year. They made plenty of money on merchandise between Stewart, Danica, and Newman, but it's a team that has a little bit to gain still. The Hendrick affiliation's helping them, but they're going to have to show up big in this next year because they've got a lot of talent on there. That's their year in review. Tune in here in a little bit. I'll be posting more of these. I'm going to do every racing team, and I'll talk to you guys later.